Hello guys, Squiggle here, and welcome to my video on the changes that are happening to Outlaw Rogue in Battle for Azeroth. Now, just a quick disclaimer for this video, this is not going to talk about the numbers of the abilities, simply it is going to talk about the feel of the abilities and how much damage they are doing at the current moment. Now, the damage is something that is very subject to change. However, I believe all of the buffs and all of the changes are going to stay around the same. The numbers just might be tweaked a little bit here or there. For the current disclaimer, I am also going to say that Outlaw Rogue is currently performing very well in BFA beta, probably one of the best of the three rogue specs, and this can change as well. Sub is very incomplete, assassination does need a few tweaks, so instead of thinking this is the be all and end all guide, just wait till the rest of the videos that are coming in the next couple of months. Without further ado, I'm going to get on to the big changes that are happening to the Outlaw Rogue. Honestly, this feels insane. This feels really good. Even if I'm not doing much damage, it feels like the damage I am doing is based on my good play and very clever timing of abilities, very clever re-rolling of the bones. So, without further ado, I'll get on to my changes for the Outlaw Rogue. First off, we're going to be talking about what we are losing come BFA in regards to Legion. Now, obviously, the thing that we were working towards very hard in Legion were the artifact weapons. Now, this means that we are going to be losing a lot of traits. We are going to be losing Curse of the Dreadblades first and foremost. And what this is going to mean is that our opener is not going to involve having just full CP for the full 12 seconds. Now, this has been something that was pivotal for the opener for Outlaw for pretty much the whole expansion. However, even without this, I feel like the opener is pretty smooth because we have some new talents to go with it. Now, of course, this means that we lose a lot of other minor things, but we are going to get some things that are coming in to replace them soon. So the thing that we are getting instead are the neck, the helmet, the shoulders, and the chest. And what these give us are these passive traits that essentially work like legendaries or like the artifact weapon. So it's not like we are getting nothing in recompensation. We are going to have a lot of customization for our character nonetheless. The other thing that we are going to be losing are legendaries. Now, these legendaries are probably not going to be available after 120, so you can't do any cheesy stuff with the Legion legendaries, such as you have a 110 legendary to go along with your 120 set, and then it makes you somehow do a little bit more damage. So that's probably going to be taken out of the game. Now, on top of this means that we aren't going to have the full 100% crit in our opener for all of the specs. This is probably going to hurt Rogue the most, and for this reason we can expect that our burst is going to be lower in all three specs. So next up, I'm going to show us basically what we are getting instead from these chest, shoulders, and helmet, the Azerite pieces. Now, this is something that resembles the wrists from last expansion quite well, and if any of you guys know my connection with Outlaw, you'd know that I really enjoyed the playstyle of the wrists. I felt like these really allowed you to think about what you were doing, think about your priority all the time when you were playing as Outlaw. Now, I think that this is a really good trait. It might even be one of the best single target traits, who knows? We'll only know as time goes on. And then what we can see is that every single piece, it has one selection that is valid for all three of the specs for Rogue. It has one for Assassination, one for Outlaw, and one for Subtlety. So for this video, I'm going to be showing you guys some example ones for Outlaw. Now, you have this one, Deadshot. Really nice. Between the eyes increases the damage of your next pistol shot by 705. Basically makes between the eyes a little bit more interactive even in your single target boss cooldown when you don't even gain any effects of the stun. Now, For the second one, this is purely going to be a defensive talent. These can be different in raiding or mythic plus. For example, this one is probably going to be our best for raiding in this line. It's basically a mini Pride As. And then this one, you gain a heal and you gain some speed whenever you kill something. Essentially, this is better for mythic plus and leveling. So these things are interchangeable and you can just go with whatever you feel is best for your own playstyle. And obviously, the last trait is just going to be increasing the eye level of the item by 5. So as you can see, this is just very stock standard. This is very reminiscent of the legendaries mixed with the artifact abilities, which are two things that we're losing. And honestly, I think this system is perfect. It takes out a lot of the RNG that we used to see in the past. It still has a bit of RNG here and there, but in my opinion, there's far less and it's much easier to farm. Next up, we are going to talk about a minor change, which is going to be the abilities that have had their names changed, and also the name of some of our buffs have been changed in turn. So I'm going to run through a few of these. So for example, we're going to see that run through is now called dispatch, does the exact same thing. We are going to have our saber slash as sinister strike, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Now, with our roll the bones buff, these have actually been changed, some of these buffs. Some of the names have been changed. So if you feel like your weak cutters aren't working, this is probably why. So broadsides was changed to broadside. Jolly Roger was changed to skull and crossbones. Grand melee remains the same. Buried treasure remains the same. Shark infested waters, it's now ruthless precision. And true bearing is still true bearing. Now, the reason some of these have actually changed is because they have different effects and they have added effects added into their toolkit. Now, I'm just going to hit some dummies real quick and I'll show you guys what the differences are. So now we are going to get broadside. So what this means is that your combo point generating abilities generate one additional combo point and deal 20% increased damage. So this basically gives you a flat 20% on your Sinister Strike and your pistol shots, which is very, very good for the build that I've been running on the beta, and I think that this is a welcome change, and it means that you're not going to be re-rolling out of this buff nearly as much, if at all. Now we are going to see the skull and the crossbones. Now, what this basically says is there's a 30% chance of striking additional time and giving us the 3 pistol shot strike. And originally, this was just doubling the chance. So basically, on live, this is about 70% or 90% with the first row talent. However, on beta, this is only going to be 65 or 70%. A slight nerf, however, the strength of pistol shot is getting buffed, and that's why they've made this slight change to the skull and the crossbone. Now after this, we are going to see what Shark Infested Waters has changed into. Now, Ruthless Precision gives our critical strike chance of between the eyes an extra 60%, and then an increase of 20% to all of our other abilities. Now what this basically means is we can play a lot like the Wrists used to in Legion. Now this makes our between the eyes a pretty good use on cooldown when you have this buff, and then if you have the trait that I showed you guys before, it makes this even stronger. So it can make our between the eyes playstyle very strong and very high skill cap compared to what it used to be. So now for some more major ability changes. Now the first one that I wanted to talk about was Feint. This is actually going to be nerfed. It is going to be on a 15-second cooldown, and we are going to be taking 10% more AoE damage from this whenever it is up. Now this, honestly, I think it is quite a big nerf, but it allows us to do more damage in raids and not be seen purely as a soak / feint bot. Now, next to this, we are going to be seeing that Adrenaline Rush is going to be on the global cooldown, and this means that you have to be quite wise about when you use it, and you need to use it just before you use a finisher and make sure that you aren't capping on energy. Now, after this, the biggest change, possibly for the whole spec, is probably going to be towards Blade Flurry. This isn't just going to be a toggle, this is going to be a 2 charge 15 energy on the cooldown ability, and what this is going to allow us to do is to do 45% of damage from our single target abilities to our AoE abilities. Now, not only is this a greater amount of damage over a smaller amount of time, but also is going to increase the damage of our between the eyes and our pistol shot AoE. So I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. So we're going to use this on the cooldown. You can see me attacking everything else. You're going to see me using my between the eyes, and it is hitting everything around. Same with my pistol shot. You can see that it is going to be hitting targets around it, which I think is a fantastic buff and allows us to use these abilities AoE. Alright, so now onto the meat and potatoes of the Outlaw Rogue in BFA. Now we are going to be talking about what changes have been made to the talent tree, what has been put in and what has been taken out. So a lot of these talents are going to be reminiscent of what we used to be running in Legion, and some of these have been buffed, some of these have been nerfed. Essentially, what Blizzard is saying is we don't want you guys to be running the same stuff 2 expansions straight for every single fight. So these are pretty welcome changes for me, and I'm going to run you through a few of these. Now, remember, a lot of these numbers can change. I will talk about briefly what are going to be good at the moment. It is currently the 20th of May. There are still a few months before next expansion hits. So this is just going to be talking about the feel of these abilities and what I think is going to be best for the next couple of weeks until more hot fixes come out. So first off, we're going to have Weapon Master. Now this means that Sinister Strike has a 10% chance to strike a second time. Obviously this is very strong because our pistol shots are going to be doing a lot more damage than they formerly used to. And the same goes for Quick Draw. This increases our CP gen as well, and it increases our pistol shot damage. Now both of these are very similar and very good. I think that currently Quick Draw is probably the best for all scenarios on the beta, but this is very subject to change. I believe that Weapon Master definitely does have some uses. Next up, we have Ghostly Strike. Now, this still has the same name and icon as it did before. However, we are going to find that it does not have 100% uptime. So this only lasts for 10 seconds and it has a 35-second cooldown. Now, I am going to note that Restless Blades does reduce the cooldown of this for all of the combo points that you spend. However, you aren't going to keep it at a 100% uptime. It might end up being tuned so that it is good single target and better than the other two, but I don't think that people are going to be running this in Mythic Plus anytime soon because of its drawback. Now, on top of this, I'm going to talk about the 30 tier line. Now, I really like the changes that have happened to this line. I like the fact that Acrobatic Strikes is now almost baseline. Like, I think that there are a lot of scenarios where you will use this simply because of what you can pull off in raiding and Mythic Plus with it. You can give people so much space, you can be so much safer with only an extra 3 yards on your melee attacks, and you get the grapple hook as a baseline ability. Now this is going to be 1 minute, which is double the time of what it is on live. And then you have the retractable hook, which can reduce the cooldown of this by 30 seconds, which is what it is on live. Now, in live, we actually did like having the 30-second cooldown on fights such as scenarios near the start, where we needed the extra mobility to be able to soak and clear. Now, this does have its uses. I would say that at this current point of time, I would use Acrobatic Strikes. Hit and Run is essentially the same thing. I do think this is very good for its scenarios as well. If you're, chasing bosses that are going very fast, if you're running around in Mythic Plus, this can be pretty good as well. Now, on for the tier 45 talent, we're going to be seeing Vigor, essentially the same as what it used to be. Deeper Stratagem, same as what it used to be. And we are going to see that Mark for Death is on this row as well. Now, Mark for Death, I think, is a fantastic ability. Now, the only reason that we weren't using Mark for Death at the end of last tier was because it shared the same line as Slice and Dice, which just scaled way too well in Antorus the Burning Throne. Now, I really like this one being on the same line as the other two. This is our AoE talent of choice. If you have anything dying, this is just fantastic. I think this ability has a really high skill cap, and if this ability is used correctly, it can be paramount for a rogue success. Now, currently on the beta, I do like this one other than the other two talents, simply because it allows me to roll before a fight, and it allows me to keep on getting resets on stuff in Mythic Plus and add heavy fights. Now onto the tier 60 talents. These haven't changed pretty much at all. You have the Iron Stomach, which is only going to be useful for your soloing, so this can be for your world questing and your leveling. You've got your Elusiveness, which is very broken in AoE fights where you're using a lot of feints, and you also have single target debuffs. Then you have Elusiveness, which is pretty much fantastic for a lot of scenarios. For example, if you are doing Argus Mythic at the moment and you get the chains broken and you have a double stack on you, Elusiveness will not only save you from the Tortured Rage damage when you faint, but this is going to reduce the amount of damage that you take from the stacks. However, I am going to say that this is slightly weaker in BFA because our feint is currently on a cooldown. Now, last but not least, we have Cheat Death. This is something that you've probably seen me running multiple times. Pretty much 90% of fights I would be running Cheat Death. Now, onto our tier 75 line. We are going to be seeing that Dirty Tricks, Blinding Powder, and Prey on the Weak are in this line. So, Dirty Tricks and Blinding Powder are probably our best raid or Mythic Plus utility options. And basically what these allow is if you have a niche job of disabling a single character, like a single target character, for example on Coven or Agrimar, then these two are probably going to be the most useful for you. However, I do think that Prey on the Weak is fantastic for a lot of situations. Now, what this allows you to do, it allows you to, when you stun something, it takes increased damage from all sources for 6 seconds. So, judging off the tooltip from this, I believe it increases the damage that your party and raid do to it as well. So if there are any ads that you are able to use your Between the Eyes on, this can be insanely good for raiding and Mythic Plus alike. Like, imagine the amount of damage that your group can do with another 10% for 6 seconds. It can be the difference between a wipe and a kill in certain scenarios. Now, I am going to note as well that this is bugged at the moment. I'm not sure if they've removed the bug. Yeah, there it is. So even though this isn't stunnable, if something isn't stunnable, then your Prey on the Weak will still give you and your party the damage buff from it. Now, I'm not sure if this is a tooltip error or working as intended, but 99% I'm going to say that it's only meant to work on stunnable mobs. Now, next up, we are going to be looking at the tier 90 talent. Now, Loaded Dice, it only looks like something that is going to scale with our haste. Currently, it seems like we don't press Adrenaline Rush enough times to make good use of this, and therefore it might need some rebalancing if it is expected to be viable. However, I am going to state that I do like the fact that Loaded Dice is less RNG than Alacrity or simply rolling the bones naturally. Now, this means that you get a guaranteed 2 roll, which means that you will never have to re-roll out of your first roll the bones. Now, after this, we are going to see Alacrity, which has been changed. This now gives 3% for 20 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Now, this is slightly weaker in the long term than it used to be. However, I still think this is an extremely good talent, especially since the Roll the Bones buffs have been buffed. Now, next up, we have Slice and Dice. This is our MVP at the moment in Antorus. Now, this one, I think it's very good. I think this at the moment is a very strong talent. I really like the fact that it just gives you flat out stats and it doesn't make you reliant on rolls at all. If you are looking for the most consistent option, I believe that Slice and Dice is the best. Now, for now, I'm going to say that Alacrity is probably the best overall, especially in Mythic Plus. However, these are all subject to change, and the buffs could even be changed at any point in time. Now, last but not least, I'm going to look at the 100 tier. We are going to see Dancing Steel, which honestly I think is pretty rubbish. Now, I think that this one needs an extra effect, or it just needs to be up 24/7. This effect is just really weak compared to the other parts in the line, and I think it needs adjusting. Now we have Blade Rush. I feel like this is the single target go-to. It gives a little bit of burst AoE, but not as much as Killing Spree does. Now, essentially what this is used for is a small single target / AoE nuke, and it is going to increase our energy regen for over 5 seconds. So this is why this is probably better than Killing Spree single target. It allows us to get extra energy and keep on pumping, which is always good times. Now, onto the real MVP for this road, Killing Spree. Now, if you guys have been seeing any Outlaws wrecking face, it is simply because of how Blade Flurry and Killing Spree interact. Now, every 1 minute 30 or so, a rogue can just go completely nuts and just destroy everything over 2 seconds. Now, this is probably a little bit too strong. You guys are probably going to see this get nerfed over the next couple of weeks and months. Don't rely on it too much, but right now I am enjoying the use of this ability, especially alongside using Mark for Death to make it an even lower cooldown. Now this just about wraps up the major changes that are happening to Outlaw Rogue in BFA. Now obviously these aren't meant to be balanced changes, these are just meant to change the feel of the class, and we are going to be seeing the balance changes coming much later, perhaps even weeks or months into the next expansion, and for that I literally just can't predict everything that is going to happen. But for now, if you guys were interested in these guides, make sure that you give me a like and make sure that you subscribe for the videos coming in the next few months. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.